These trials behind me, we have 3 different types. We have an All-American Selections trial, which we're one of 50 sites in the country that receive material, seed material, and we germinate and grow that material in the greenhouse, and it's trialed there. Then it's brought out to the gardens when the weather gets better, and we'll trial it there for the season. And then we compile some numbers and send them back to the All-American Selections, and they tell us whether there was a winner or not from those results. So that's a pretty cool thing to have. I mean, the trials are done on plants that had never been introduced to the public. They're not out there in anyone else's garden. These plants are brand new, and so for a plant person like myself, it's exciting to see the new plants, and I don't actually get to see them until they grow because, again, they're seeds when they're handed to me. Again, so we're into midsummer, so the plants are really showing off what they have. It's been a hot, dry, droughty summer, so we're getting a lot of ideas on who's good in the droughty situations, high humidities, low waters, so they're really on their own once they're out here. We don't try to manipulate them in any other manner than giving them really good, healthy soil. We use no insecticides or fungicides, so the plants really are pretty much untouched other than when we're growing them in the greenhouse and watering them, and we might deadhead them or take off the spent flowers. The good bugs are out there, and in the greenhouse we actually have to buy in our good bugs because we don't use any insecticides there either. So we buy in the bugs to battle the bugs. We're running now at about 12 years of the trials. They used to be held at the Waltham Field Station by the Extension Service, the state Extension Service, through the University of Massachusetts. They gave up that. We were available on a site that could take those plants and evaluate them here, and so we've had the trials here. The Massachusetts flower growers and the UMass Extension help us out an awful lot to keep us supplied with the plant material and the material needed to grow the plants. Basically, it's to show homeowners, garden centers, greenhouse operators, landscapers, nurserymen, anyone who likes new plants will want to know how do they do here. And so this site is being in a Zone 5. We don't have many other people. I think the only other trial site like ours is up in Maine. There's one up there, and there's several out in the Midwest and other places, 48 sites other than ours. So it's a unique site in that way that it is local. So again, it's a great way to show the local people and how those plants are going to perform in the garden. So we're standing over here next to what we call the All-American Selections trial, and what they do is they'll send me these plants from seed, and usually there's at least 1, 2, or 3 comparison plants. So this plant here is looking for the award. It has to be as good or better than the comparison plants that are sent with it. So what's nice to see here is we have a brand new unique color for these varieties. This is a Sahara type zinnia, and it's going to be a deeper red than I've ever seen before. So with breeding, they've had a series of these plants, but it was always an orangey red. And now finally they're getting to a deeper red. It's got nice even habit. It's got the flowers coming out above the foliage. There's no foliage damage on it. There's no bug or disease damage on it. These are some very good plants. So again, we want homeowners to know that and the growers to know that. These are the plants that they should try to grow and distribute to the public, because this plant people will have no problem growing this plant in their yard. And so that's what All-American Selections is. It's like the Good Housekeeping seal of approval, but in the seed and plant world. If they look on their seed catalogs, a lot of times they'll see this seal, this All-American Selection seal, and that means that the plant that has that seal has been tried and tested throughout the country, and it has won the award. And it takes a lot. It takes the company itself that is sending us this plant we don't know what it is. When it comes to us, it's in a brown envelope. So we have no way of knowing who this plant is, but we grow it on. We do know who these guys are because they've been already awarded awards from AAS, and this guy is new to us, but boy, he's looking great. Again, you can see he's a great pollinator with all the bees and insects on these plants, and it's a great new plant for AAS to have if that does happen to win. Again, it has to do as well here as it did in Florida, as it did in Washington State, as it did up in Maine. So once all those numbers are brought back, they average them out, and they have to meet a certain high number in order to be a winner. And when they go to distribute this plant to the public, in their wording of the seed catalog, it'll say, did exceptionally well in the Northeast, did great down south during the hot, dry periods or muggy weather. So again, they're trialed everywhere, and then it's up to the people that are producing the plant to get all of those things on their label so that the people know what this will do and where it'll do best. Yeah, it's a great way for people to know without even trying that plant with that seal is a winner. So we're standing in the potted section of the trial garden. We've got 3 plants per pot. It's a 12-inch pot. We use a soilless mix. These plants have all been grown in the greenhouse into 4-inch pots and then transplanted into these larger, what we call our patio pots. So the plants here are to show people what they look like in the pot versus in the ground, because these plants, a lot of gardeners today, they only have pots. They don't have a lot of ground to plant in, and so everyone's trying more and more things in containers. So we want to show people what does well in a container and what might not do well in a container. And so you can see these are a batch of our calipacoas, and they do very well in containers. These guys are making it through the summer carefree. There's no cleaning of blossoms. The plant just keeps producing and producing. As long as you water and feed them, they'll go perfectly all summer long. The bigger the pot, the better. We use a 12-inch pot. It's harder to grow a summer plant in a smaller than a 12-inch pot. So we like to see everyone pot things up into larger pots for their summer gardens. But again, it shows people, wow, I could have this mixture or these plants just doing beautifully in my mixed containers or on our patios. They do very well in those. We're standing over here now in this section of the trial garden for our perennial trials. We do a 3-year perennial trial for All American Selections. It's new this year for us. And it gets to show people who are buying perennials now for their gardens so that they don't have to replant every year. And we want to show them what perennials are really doing well here in New England. So it's a 3-year trial because we want to see how they overwinter. It's all about how they'll respond to our climate, and so they'll have to go through one of our winters. So again, it's a 3-year trial. We'll score these plants each year. We'll keep track of how many of them survive the winters, and we'll be able to see which ones make it and which ones don't. They introduce hundreds of varieties of perennials every year, so growers and homeowners aren't really sure of how these plants will do here in New England. So it's a great opportunity here at the trials to see the plants, how they'll look during their summers and how they'll look in their springs. And there's usually a big difference. A lot of the breeders aren't from this area, so they don't know how hardy some of their plant material is. And so to send it out to us and have it trialed is a great way to show how it's going to make it through a New England winter. And those winters can go down to 0 degrees or colder, and they can be fairly warm some winters, and they can be snowy or not snowy. So again, these will be in a typical winter, and we'll get to see if they do make the grade and come back every year. And we want to only promote those kind of plants because we'd rather have people have good experiences with their plants and have them come back when they're supposed to come back as a perennial. All right, then we're back over into another section of the trials. Why I stopped over here is to show you a batch of flowering vinca. Flowering vinca is a plant that isn't widely used, and it should be. These plants love our summers. They love our summers as hot as we can get them. They love our summers sometimes as dry as we can get them. And this year we've had one of those hot, dry summers. People could have planted vinca. They need at least 6 hours of sun, but they don't require a lot of other work. There's no cleaning of the flowers. They're free flowering, continually flowering right up until frost. So again, it's a great variety of plants. This Titan really red, this Valiant lilac, and the series of Valiants, the burgundy, the pink, again, extremely easy plants to care for, and that require very little water and extra care to keep them looking just beautiful all summer long. We can also scan a little bit further down, and as we were talking about the AAS's new red zinnia, why I thought it might be a Zahara is because this is the Zahara series. And you can see again how wonderful of a plant these are. Some of them are double foliaged, and some of them are more of a single. They're quite happy to be in that full sun. Again, with very little care and a minimal amount of watering is required to keep these guys going all season long. Again, what's cool about these guys are the flowers come out above the old flowers, so that's why you don't have to do a lot of flower cleaning, because the new flowers will cover all those up. Again, to have that series of double flowers, single flowers in an array of colors, I can't say enough about the Zaharas, because they're just a beautiful series of plants that are really, really bred well. And I'd say well over 3/4 of the Zaharas are AAS winners. So they've really been tested and are really true to their name of being a tough, easy plant to grow. We could probably even just scan over from here. Another trial we're doing in the gardens are our heirloom tomato trial. And as you can see, there's a nice long batch of tomatoes here. They're all old heirloom varieties. Again, we want to show people that there's a lot of varieties that aren't hybridized. They haven't been selected and selected over and over again. These are actually seed-grown, open-pollinated varieties that just through the years people have saved their seeds from season to season. And they're wonderful flavors, there's wonderful shapes, and there's actually some really wonderful stories that go along with these. People have handed these down for generations, brought them with them from Europe and from wherever else they hailed from, and brought them to this country and used them here, and then again handed them down generation after generation. There's some extremely wonderful flavors that you won't taste in some of the newer hybrids. We've had hardly any incidences of blight, and everyone used to say, oh, well, they'll be all blight ridden. It's not true. Again, if you use good practices on growing tomatoes and keeping them healthy through your help with keeping the plants clean and nice and air circulation around them, these plants are just as disease-free as the newer hybrids. But again, wonderful flavors, wonderful colors, and well worth the time to try a few of them every year to find your own favorite heirloom. So we were talking about some of these coleus. And again, the really great part about it is the breeders are keeping those flowers off, which none of us really liked, and it keeps the foliage much cleaner. Again, a great attribute to coleus nowadays is to have it without flowers. So it's people mostly would pinch those flowers off, but now we don't even have to do that with the new breeding. They've kept those flowers off for us. So again, a lot less care. And we've come into the impatiens. The first batch of impatiens you see here are newer New Guinea impatiens. Come a long way with those, with the flowers above the foliage, much larger flowers, able to take a lot more sun than they used to. And again, a great additive to the garden with very low maintenance. I just wanted you to see a little bit further over. We actually are starting to grow again some of our old-fashioned impatiens that everyone grew for 30 years until the blight came. And the blight has made it virtually impossible for the growers to grow a good impatient. And this year we decided to trial some more, and we got some in, and we're trialing them, and they've done excellent this year. Maybe the reason is that I'm told that on a dry summer like we've had, we don't have as many spores, and so the spores aren't able to get into the air and to infect the foliage, which is what the downy mildew, which is what the older impatiens got, and which is why 3 or 4 years ago we all stopped growing them, because the downy mildew would just take them right out. No matter what we did, we just couldn't keep them alive. And this year was a good example to show that the downy mildew at least isn't in this area of Wellesley, and that the impatient crop did very well. But it's hard to say that if it was just because it was a dry summer, that the infection could be still in the area and could reinfect these plants if the conditions were right. Again, at a new spot in the garden. We're in our little petunia section of the garden. I love petunias, and I love the new varieties especially. These newer varieties take a lot less cleaning. The older varieties, we used to do a lot of plucking of the old flowers as they faded. But the newer varieties are free-flowering and self-cleaning, which pretty much means they shrivel up on the plant and just drop off. But what's really nice is that new set of flowers keeps coming out to the top, and it just produces these wonderful mounds of beautiful colors. Everything is in a bright, really shows from a distance. Fairly easy to take care of the new varieties as long as you can feed them and water them. They will do just fine all summer long in quite an array of colors. They've even cut some over here that have rings of colors on the outside, some beautiful purples, but the petunias are well worth trying because of their easy care. I just wanted to make sure you saw some of these newer varieties. Vista Bubblegum is very nice, very easy to take care of, and they have several other colors in that series now that are also just as easy. We can probably pan over and see some of the plants that you usually don't see during the summer, and those are the tiny little violas. Now, violas used to be really what we all called a cool crop. We would grow them during our cooler seasons, fall and early spring, and they would just kind of peter out during our hot summers. But now people love the flower itself, and the growers and the breeders thought that if they could put some heat tolerance into their violas, that would be a fabulous plant, because people really love the faces on these little guys. And again, they've done a great job this summer. Again, not even that many years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, you couldn't find a pansy to make it through our hot summers. And you can see this year we've had one of our hottest summers on record, and yet the pansies or the violas are doing very, very well. And again, we haven't had to clean them or any extra care. They're doing that all on their own. And they certainly have created quite a lot more heat tolerance in those plants than have ever been around before. Well, we're doing some more trials here in the garden this year. We do what we call a performance trial. So we've already talked about the All-American Selections trial. One of the other trials we'll do here in the garden is our own performance trial. So what that is that companies will send in their plants, and we'll just perform a trial on those plants for the season or if they're perennial, how they overwinter. So these don't have anything to do with All-American selections, but yet they are the newest and best of some of the new breeders in the country that want to send us their plants, and we'll trial them here. Why I stopped in this particular spot is because it shows a lot of our perennials down the path here, and also on the right-hand side you'll see a nice batch of what I call our sweet potato vines. Again, a great plant for large plantings or for your container growing. Some of them are still very tightly grown types that don't overwhelm their containers, and some of them are the overwhelming type that actually do very, very well as a ground cover in the landscape. Very easy to take care of. Again, I think one of the big attributes here is that we don't use any insecticides, and there's a lot of good guys eating the bad guys. Generally, I've seen a lot of holes on these sweet potato vines. This year I'm finding no holes, and that means that the good guys are out numbering and winning the battle over the bad guys, which would have been out here eating the foliage. So again, a great crop of sweet potato vine, and you're right, they do produce a tuber, just like our sweet potatoes that we eat, although they're not quite as tasty because they're more ornamental varieties, and so that the tubers can be saved from season to season, or you can go out and purchase some new plant material and grow those for your season. Also out here, we have an awful lot of perennials that I call the pollinators. If you look down these paths, you'll see an awful lot of bee activity. There are native bees, there are honey bees, our bumblebees, and they're all looking for that pollen. And what's really nice is that they're cross-pollinating, and they're finding plenty of things to bring back to their hive for their honey. And just to show how healthy area this is, to have that many different types of bees and pollinators, that we can certainly see that it's worth having these in the garden to keep our pollinators happy and to keep them healthy during their season, so that they'll be back again, because we'd be in a lot of trouble without our pollinators. But again, some beautiful perennials, salvias. There's a nice batch of veronicas over here, a nice batch of acamelias over here, some penstemons, and this particular plant over here is called bee balm, and they've come a long way with bee balm to keep it nice and clean during the summer. And again, a very happy plant with a very interesting flower heads. We actually get a lot of hummingbirds on our bee balm.